Painting florals is really just painting blobs. I know it sounds weird, but stick with me. This is going to blow your mind as far as the change in mental aspect of this stuff. So, a lot of times people think about florals and they want to paint very perfect lines, but it's really about painting blobs. So, we're starting off, we're going to be doing 3 greeting cards today. And the reason we're doing 3 is because while one's drying, we're going to be painting another one. So it just kind of all balances out. So we're starting this first one with a bunch of blobs. And for the first color, I just did a very, very watered down color. And when it comes to painting lighter colors with watercolor, you use water to lighten it and not white. If you use white, it'll make it chalky. I remember it's something that you just kind of, if you've been doing watercolor for a long time, it just becomes so second nature that you forget to even remind others that not to use white. So don't use white, you're using water to lighten it. So paint a bunch of blobs and change the shade with water. And then while that's drying, while your blobs are drying, we are going to start our second painting, which is a lavender, like a lavender bouquet. And I'm going to start off with doing, again, a lighter shade. And I'm going to use this as my background. Um, Not necessarily a background to the whole painting, but just kind of creating depth with the bouquet. Because if I were just to do the lavender right off, then you wouldn't see the kind of depth to it. So I wanted to do first a light layer of very, very light purplish blue blobs. Then you want to wait for that to dry and then go in with your darker color. Now, you'll be able to see the lighter ones in the background of it afterwards, but yeah, wait for it to actually dry. I got impatient, so I just went back to my first painting when I realized it wasn't dry enough. So now I'm turning my blobs into flowers, and I'm going to be adding the stem and the base of the flower. But what a lot of people I've seen do, it's kind of just, it's something our brains do. We see a flower, we paint the flower, we paint the stem, right? But when we look at a bouquet, and if you have flowers near you, or even if you want to pull up an image on Google, you look at, let's say, a bouquet of wildflowers, you will see that they're not all perfectly sitting up straight. They have a little bend to them. Sometimes you see the back of the flower more than the front of the flower. Sometimes the flower is a little bit bent. And so you don't want to create this base of the flower and then the flower and paint every flower like that, because that's when it starts to look a little, I don't want to say childish because I hate that phrase for when it comes to artwork, but rudimentary, I guess. But if you change where the base is on the flower, even though my blobs are kind of the same, it will just change the angle of the flower, which you can see with these 2 flowers that I did. Then I'm just going to take my brush and add the stems. And I've had a lot of my students ask me, you really do the flowers first, then the stem? I do the flowers first most of the time, because then you can fill in the stems where you feel it needs to go. Because sometimes it's easier, especially if you're painting a bouquet, to paint the flowers in the arrangement you like and then fill in the stems where they go naturally. Otherwise, you are trying to make um, the stems and a lot of people, if you're drawing just the stems first, it's hard not to just draw the whole stem. You draw the whole thing and then you can't fill in the flowers if they're sitting in front of it or if it's sitting back of it, which, with watercolor, you can't layer like you can with acrylic and oil. So I like starting with the floral first and then filling in the stems where I feel they need to go. That way you can make the bouquet kind of how you like, and then the stems go where they need to go, if it makes sense. So hopefully that made sense. But if you're watching this, then well, I'm assuming you're watching it, then you're probably visually seeing it better than I'm explaining it. But I'm just filling in stems, and then don't make stems unless it's like a gerbera where, the stems are these perfectly straight stems. Most stems on flowers are haphazard, just like the blob. So painting florals, the trick to painting florals is painting blobs and haphazard stems. It is really truly that. And I've had students who've taken my botanical class who they're they're like me. They're a little controlling, A-type, and they struggle with this because it's hard to let your mind go. A lot of times you overthink things, but florals is really just blobs and haphazardness, and you just kind of have to let go and make it work. See what happens. So I hate to break it to you that it's not some crazy trick to it. It's really just mentally letting it go and then filling it out where it needs to go, just like this one. So I had my blobs and then I filled in my stems, and now I have my wildflower bouquet. And these are all the same color pinks. Like I said, I just changed the shade with a little bit of water here and there. And now I'm just adding a couple of details to finish it off, just completing the florals. I'm using just a sap green, and I added some brown to it to make it a little bit more organic. Looking, the sap green from Dr. P.H. Martin is this beautiful vibrant green, but which is great for like succulents and stuff because this is really pretty vibrant green. But if you want to make it a little bit more organic looking, I say organic even though like obviously succulents are organic, but if you want to look a little more natural, then just add a little bit of brown to it to change the tone a little bit. So now that the lavender is actually dry, I am going back and adding some of the darker tones to it. And as you can see, the lighter lavender is behind it, and it kind of just fills in some of those empty spots, which so when you're going in and you're painting the darker ones, let some of those lighter ones just kind of come through. You don't want to be perfect with your petals. Again, haphazard. The less controlled you can be, the better it's probably going to look. So as you can see, the difference between this and the first bouquet is this one is just smaller blobs. So it's just, if you want bigger flowers, bigger blobs, smaller flowers, smaller blobs. It's just blobs, just blob and dotting. And there's no technique to it. It is really just that. And people are like, well, you make it look so easy. It is easy. If you find yourself struggling with it, it's more mental than it is skill. If you're struggling with getting this, you're like, but mine look, just let go. Maybe just don't control it so much. And just keep in mind that you're just looking at more of the spaces you're filling in versus the perfection of the floral stems. So as you can see, I did a lot of purples and pinks today. The last one I'm going to do is also going to be in the purples. You could do these in whatever colors that you like. In fact, when I taught this to one of my botanical classes, one of the students did it in a lot of fall colors and it was really beautiful. Somebody else did it in all yellows and oranges. It was also really beautiful. So you don't have to do purple just because I'm doing purple. It's just kind of what I was drawn to in this one, and which is funny because I'm not typically a purple person. That's not easy to say, but in this case, I liked it. So I just thought this was pretty. So the only thing I'm really controlling here is where the stems are kind of going towards. So I want it to be a tied bouquet, like tied up. I'm going to have a ribbon around it. So that's why they're all kind of coming towards the center. And keep the links. So if you look at a bouquet, the bottom of every flower is not perfectly even with each other. So keep the heights and the lengths of your florals kind of a different height so it looks a little bit more natural. And then go ahead and again, floral first and then the stems. I'm going to go in and add my stems. I'm not counting to make sure that they're the right amount because technically you don't really see how many stems there are. I'm just filling in where I feel like it's kind of needed. Because you assume there's going to be some floral in the back as well. So you don't want to have just a few stems. So I'm leaving a little gap in there because I'm going to have a ribbon tied around the stems. And I wanted to do a purple as well, but I didn't want it to get muddy. So I left a little bit of a gap there. And then I'm going to add the purple ribbon. I'm keeping this all kind of minimalist here and leaving this one like a thin ribbon because it just felt like a very minimalist type painting. So I wanted the ribbon to match. And then lifting some color just so it can lighten a little bit, also just to speed up the drying process a little bit. And then I'm going to go in and add this shadow in between the ribbons. So when you see a bow, you can see the inside of the bow is a little bit darker just to give it that kind of rounded effect there. as I'm doing right now. So again, just lifting to lift up some color. It is all the same purple, just variations of how much water and concentration of color there is, and then adding some shadowing to the ribbon that's tied around there just to make it look a little bit more rounded. And so that was our lavender bouquet, and now we're going to do a lavender wreath, and I'm just going to loosely draw a kind of a heart shape. So the idea behind this was that two big stems of these purple florals come together in a somewhat heart-shaped. I didn't want it to look like a wreath where it was tied perfectly. I'm just kind of making it look like these two stems come together in a heart-like shape. If you can see the pencil drawing, you'll be able to tell, or you can just fast forward to the end to see what it looks like first, just to get an idea of the shape. But I'm going to be doing different shades of purples and like a purplish blue in here. So I'm doing kind of one shade, and I'm literally just doing, like, again, blobs. But they're a little bit more, they're more controlled blobs this time. I'm doing a little bit more of that petal shape. And the petal shape, I will post a link in the comments below, how to really kind of master the single brush stroke petal. You don't necessarily have to do that in this one, but it's just a kind of a good thing to have in your back pocket to use. But I am using kind of just the little petal shapes, and as you can see, there's big gaps in between some of them because I'm going to be filling that in with other color. So it just made sense to do all one color first and then go in and do the other color and fill it in where I feel like it needed to. So some darker purple, some bluish purple, just to fill that in. So I'm curious. I asked this question to the beginning of all of my botanical classes. I have a 3-week botanical class that I teach here in northern New England. And one of the questions I ask at the beginning of the botanical class is, what is your favorite flower or botanical? You know what's funny is I never hear anybody say a rose. And I don't know, even though roses are kind of like what you give as gifts for romance, I don't hear people say roses. I hear peonies a lot. I hear daisies a lot, but never a rose. Mine is probably a peony as well. I just love how hardy they look, and they're just some of the most beautiful colors, and I just love them. I think they're so pretty, and they do kind of look like a rose. I forgot what type of rose it is that it reminds me of, but it does in a way look like rose. I love herbs too, so anything herbal, and then so like lavender, I love anything in the herbal area. I just love as well. So I'm curious, what is your favorite flower? Is it a flower? Is it a plant? And then we also do a lot with like wildflowers as well. It's a fun thing to paint because again, it's a lot of loose blobs and stuff. But as you can see here, I'm kind of just filling out the left side of the heart, lifting some color up as well as we go along. And I will go through and add. And as it gets to the bottom of the stem, it's going to get a little bit thicker because naturally that's what happens, right? The tip of the stem is thinner and the base of the stem is a little bit thicker. So I'm just making the flowers a little bit bigger at the base. And then, as you can see, just filling in some. And don't keep them all the exact same size petals. You want it to look a little bit natural, so different size petals. So let me know if I do get a lot of people saying that they struggle with painting trees and painting botanicals. I've been trying to put more of those videos out, so let me know if this is working for you, if you want more, if there's a specific type of flower you would like to learn how to paint. Whatever it is, let me know, because there's no point in me doing the videos if they're not going to help you out. So I want to do videos that make sense to you. You could kind of see the heart shape happening right now that I'm adding this, the petals on the right. But it's just, like I said, just kind of like two stems coming together and forming this loose heart shape. I don't know. I think this was probably my favorite of the 3 cards I did. It was the most, it took the longest to do just because of all the little petals in there. But it just came out, I don't know, I just really like this one. So which one is did you try all 3? And and which one do you like the most. So when I teach this class, I have people pick one of the three to paint. Because, we're short on time. We can't just, pause the video and go have a coffee break like you can on YouTube. In person, we're a little bit constrained. I have my workshops are 2 hours they're 3 weeks and 2 hours each day. So, and I want people to get the most out of the classes. So obviously, I don't have them paint all three because we usually do one of the three cards, and then the second half of the class we do a more complete piece. So they always pick one. This is one that gets picked quite a bit. The other one that gets picked a lot is the second one as well. And I've asked people, why don't they pick the first one? They said they're intimidated by it. So, which is funny because to me it's the easiest one to do. But it's a mental barrier. Just knowing that it is really about overcoming that perfection that a lot of us seek to do. And this is just a great opportunity to try to let it go, let it flow. And, it's watercolor. Go with the flow. So I'm going to also be adding in some greenery to this, which I think just really pulls it all together nicely, is throwing in not only the green for the base of the stem, but putting in some they look like kind of like a green grass. I don't know what they're called, but I think they're like a type of grass that you can add to bouquets. Like if you go and you have a bouquet made, they add these like really thin green wispy, I really want to say grass because I really think that's what it is, but I want to add that to this floral as well because I think it's just really pretty and will finish it off nicely. When I lived in Arizona, there was a grocery chain called AJ's, one of the things I missed from living in Arizona was this grocery chain. It was a high-end grocery chain. Wow, I cannot say that. And they had the most beautiful floral department, and they just put together some of the most, and they had these exotic flowers, and it's just, they would put these green wispy pieces of grass into their bouquets, and I always thought it was very, very pretty. They also put kind of the droopy ones. I think they're like a type of vine, but they look like a floral vine, also hanging out of their bouquets. It was just so pretty. So that's what this reminds me of. I don't see too much of that here. I don't, maybe it's because we can grow flowers here very easily in New England, that people are like, well, it's all in my yard, so I don't need to get creative with my bouquets. But one of the things I do love about New England is seeing so many beautiful flowers and colors in the springtime. So I'm very excited because it's right around the corner. We're going to see all these really beautiful flowers just blooming. I remember we moved here in the fall, and so all the flowers were already gone. But when the first spring I experienced here, the daffodils were the first thing to pop up, and I could not believe that daffodils were just growing wild here. It was just unreal. I mean, people had fake daffodils planted in their yards in Arizona just to get that color in there, but it was just growing wild here, and it just blew my mind. It blows my mind, the beautiful flowers here. So I'm very excited to be painting this, and hopefully you guys got something out of this video. Again, leave a comment below on what your favorite flower is. I really do want to know. I will be hanging out with you in the comments as well. And then also let me know if you tried 1, 2, 3 of these, which ones you like better, which ones work better for you. And of course, if you have any questions, I will do my best to get them answered. But I am very excited for these florals. I definitely want to do a couple more floral videos, just not really sure. Maybe a peony. What do you think? Should we do a peony video since I mentioned that one? Maybe more of a photorealism one, less blobs, more detail. Since this is kind of the blob video, we'll balance it out with the other way around, with one blob, one detailed. So here we go. Here's all 3 together. And hope you enjoyed it. And if you do make these cards, let me know if you give them to somebody or if you're keeping them for yourself.